go and figure out
Like what?
where.
Like what do you want to know?
Starting with great grandma.
Okay, starting with little grandma.
Palmera.
Yeah, her
No.
name, where she was
Palumbo.
Palumbo.
from.
Hey,
And,
may I
and
just
like
say
you
something?
can.
May I just say something here?
No.
That's good. Let's not get overwhelming with Yola.
Okay. Yola, remember that name?
Hmm.
When we went down to Florida for Ricky's
Oh, yeah.
christening.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Who
ticket.
gave you that nickname?
The ticket. Well, the ticket.
limousine guy.
The airline ticket shortened her name.
Yeah.
Yola.
Instead of putting Yolanda, they just put Yola.
Yola,
So she
yeah.
was forever Yola after that.
Forever Yola. That's
They
the
just-
title for a movie.
This is
They
the title.
decided themselves
Okay,
what to name
how about
her.
I ask the basic question?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
And that's-
And
it'll
if
make it easier
And
for
if
me.
you got any other things,
And you can.
Ask.
Can I raise my hand?
Yeah.
when you ask, I will ask you the questions, but you can answer to Judy or Rick.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And basically, I like the idea. Hold on.
Go out yesterday.
Okay, screw the cat.
Okay.
Then I took him in because it was so damn cold anyway. Let him sit in the sun.
Yeah. So he remembered that.
But
Ed,
lit.
I want to shoot some history here.
Okay.
You'll have your turn.
Okay.
Oh no, I don't think so.
Okay. I want to know.
Go right ahead.
I want to know, or we'd all want to know. Let's see. Starting on your father's side of the family,
Mm-hmm.
tell us, take us back to Italy. Their names, and where they lived.
Okay. My father's name was Francesco Cacavello. He was born in Bovino, Italy, which is a province or provincia di Foggia. His father's name was Pasquale Cacavello, and his mother, which is my grandmother, or was my grandmother, was Maria Giovanna Cacavello. Palumbo was her maiden name. My father knew my mother in Italy, but they both came to the United States different times. And they lived in New Canaan, Connecticut. And they were married in Stamford at St. John's Church, because that was the only Catholic church around in those days. And my father had to pay the priest $2 for him to marry her. So then they came to Springdale and lived, and they had my sister Jenny first, who was the oldest in our family. She's 82. Jenny's was married to Danny Patchen, so her name was Jenny Patchen, and she had 3 boys. My sister Lucille married Mario Persiani, and she had a boy named Louis and a daughter Laura. My brother Pat, who was an airline pilot for many, many years till he had to retire when he was 60, had 2 children. Young Patrick, they changed her name to Cavella when he was flying, because he had to transmit his name over the mic, and Cacavella was too long, so he changed his name to Cavella. And he had a daughter, Kim, and his son, Frank. So that would take care of my immediate family except me. I married Louis DiCiato. We had 3 children. My son Dominic, who was my youngest, died when he was 19 from injuries from an auto accident. And I have a daughter, Roseanne, who is 51, and she has a son, Frankie, who is 32. And my son Louis is 53. He has 2 boys. He has Louis III DiCiato and Christopher, who is 24. So that would take care of my immediate family. We're all Cacavellos at heart.
Okay, is there anybody we missed on Mom's side?
My mother, well, my mother had 1 brother here in this country. His name was Pasquale Russo. Her maiden name was Russo. And she only had the one brother and nieces and nephews. And her family was kind of small. She lived to be 89 years old. She was a very, very intelligent lady. She used to sing beautiful soprano, and her favorite song, which we all wanted her to sing, was Tell Me That You Love Me Tonight, which is Parlami d'amore Mariu.
Can you
So-
sing us a few bars?
Yeah, I'll sing it in English or in Italian. I don't know which one you want.
Sing in
Italian, if you
Italian. Parlami d'amore, Mariu, tutta la mia vita sei tu. Gli occhi tuoi belli brillano, fiamme di sogno scintillano. So that's the song my mother sang, and it was her favorite song. And we never had a time with her where we wouldn't ask her to sing that beautiful song.
What did your father do for a living?
My father was a contractor and he built homes. And he was a very, very, very good builder. He built in Japan, he built the beach club there, which was right on the water in Japan. And he built many, many beautiful homes and made a good dollar. And then later, as he got a little bit older, he had property across the street from our house on Camp Avenue, and that's where he built the restaurant called the Paradise Grill that he and my mother operated for many, 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 many years. It's still there, but it has had about 10 or 15 owners, including my brother Manuel at one time. He owned it for many years with Hugo. So that's all I can tell you about my family.
Okay, I was interested. You said something about New Canaan. That's where your parents.
My parents lived in New Canaan when they first came here from Italy, and my sister Jenny was born in New Canaan. It was very, very, very small town.
Tell me about. I'd like to know where you lived and how you lived growing up with all the kids. Where did
Okay.
you sleep? What was school like? So on.
My father built the house that we lived in on Camp Avenue. It was a 3-story house out of stone. And my mother helped him. And my mother said she would get a wheelbarrow and fill it up with stones and bring it into the floor of the apartment. And she said my father would get very upset with her because it made the floor crooked. So that was my mother's help. And we all lived there until we all left to get married and leave the household. It was a lovely, lovely house, and I cherish the memory of that. We had so many good times. My father had a piano that played the rolls, the old rolls on the piano. They call them pianola. And my mother used to sit at it every Sunday afternoon after our dinner and pump her feet and sing the words on the song. And they always would be opera songs. They loved my mother and father both loved music, and he played the mandolin beautifully. So that was
So
it.
you had Sunday dinners together. Was it just mom, dad, brothers, and sisters, or did a bigger family collect?
No, the Sunday dinners were with my grandmother who had come from Italy, and 5 children, and my mother and father. So we were really 8 of us at the dinner table. Every Sunday my mother cooked pasta and chicken and salad, and that was our ritual dinner. And my father, of course, made his own wine and drank his own wine. So, and yes,
Where did he do the wine?
where did he made it?
Where
in
did he make it?
In our cellar. They had they call it in Italian the stringadur. That's what strains the grape. You throw the grape in this and it strains it. So my mother used to help them downstairs, and they made their own wine. And my sister Jenny took piano lessons when she was about 12, and my brother Pat took violin lessons when he was about 8 and 10, he became a very good virtuosus on the with the
Island.
violin. And then after they would leave the room, I would sit at the piano and try to play by ear whatever I heard them play. But then later on, maybe about 15 years old, I took accordion lessons. And my mother bought me a beautiful white accordion, which I still have, and I still play the accordion, but I play a different one, which was a better one than my little white one. And at parties, I always play the accordion. And then when I worked for this doctor, he gave me the Hammond organ that he had bought and never took lessons. So I have an organ in my home and a piano in my home. And my husband and I are very happy in our house now. We just live alone. Louis is going to be 82, and he plays golf, and he got a hole-in-one twice. And the doctor I worked for passed away, so I'm just sitting around and just doing my hobbies, which is getting old sheet music of songs that remind me of a certain person and put their picture in it and a little ditto of whatever I think about them. And that's it.
Let's go through your brothers and sisters.
Okay?
What sheet music started at the bottom with was Manny the youngest?
Yes, Manny was the
Okay,
youngest.
start at the bottom and work up to the oldest kid. What sheet music do you attach with each of your siblings?
Let's see. Manny, he loved to play the guitar, so for him I have Granada, the song Granada that he played beautifully. And I have that in a little frame on my wall in my bar. My sister Lucille, I found in an antique store, I found a song called Lucille by Walter Donaldson, who wrote Molly and Me. And I have that one of her. And then, let's see, my brother Pat's is This Love of Mine. That was his favorite song. And in his plaque, I have pictures of all of us. Me, my mother, my father, all of us in the family are in the picture that I have of Pat on the wall with his wife. And lastly, my sister Jenny's is the one I like the best because I found an old sheet music called, you saw the old movie, the one you said before about the war, it was about war.
Farewell to
Farewell
Arms.
to Arms.
Farewell to Arms. Now the old original music, Farewell to Arms, is what I have on the wall with a picture of my sister Jenny in there and a couple of little words. But Farewell to Arms, many, many years ago, there were different actors and actresses than they have now. They've made that movie at least 3 times. So that's it. I hope I didn't forget anybody.
No, you didn't. Let's see. Let's give me a picture of Stamford. You, even Rick says that he remembers Stamford as a small town, and now it's a big town. It must have gone through tremendous changes from your childhood through now.
Oh yes, in my childhood, to go to Stamford, you would take a trolley, and the end of the trolley was up the street from where we lived, and it was on the corner where Maclett's laboratory is. And then many years ago, after they got finished with the trolley, they dug up the tracks on Hope Street. But Stamford was a very small town, and Springdale was part of it, and later on it became all one town. It had a nice town hall, which it still has, but they don't use it as a town hall anymore. They use a new building on Washington Avenue, and they've changed. Stamford has changed a lot. There are a lot of big office buildings, and right now the newest one is the Swiss Bank in Stamford.
What has that taken the place of? It's built on a piece of property that used to be what?
What used to be the Connecticut Light and Power building way up the end of Atlantic Street.
Away from the sound, or?
Yes,
Or-
it's away from the sound, yes. It's right, it's actually in the center of town.
Okay. Tell us about school. You went to Stanford schools?
I went to Springdale School until I was 14. I went there through the 8th grade. At that time, they didn't have anything more than 8th grade in Springdale. And I went to Stanford High, and I had 4 years in Stanford High. And I took up stenography and typing, and then after I got out of high school, I worked in a jewelry store called Brown's Jewelry Store as a secretary for about 5 years.
Where was Brown's located?
It was located on the corner of Main Street and Atlantic Street, right in the center of town, across from the town hall, and right near what used to be Grant's, 5 and 10. And that was on Main Street, but these buildings are no longer there now because we have a new mall right there in that part of town.
When did you meet Uncle Louis?
Oh, Uncle Louis and I were, as you would say, love thy neighbor. His family moved next door to us. His father and Uncle Louis and his brother, only one brother, worked on the Merritt Parkway back in 1936. And that's when I met Uncle Louis. And then they went home after a year. And then Uncle Louis was taking up plumbing, and he went to Bermuda for 13 months. My brother Pat took Louis and I to New Jersey to take a boat that he took to Bermuda back in 1942, before the war. And Uncle Louis stayed there 13 months, and the war broke out. He couldn't come back home because they were sinking the ships. And then when he got home in January of 1943, we got engaged January 3rd, and we got married January 18th. We've been married 52 years.
Why did he have to go to Bermuda to learn plumbing?
No, that was an offer to make more money. They were building, in Bermuda, they were building, at the time, they were building near the ships, they were building some big plumbing things. And that's where he went to work, for McGraw Company. That was the name of it, McGraw something.
Okay.
And when he came back, he went right into service. When we got married, my mother-in-law brought us his papers that he was being drafted. And we went on our honeymoon to New York City. 5 days later, we went back to Willimantic, and then Uncle Louis went into service. And I came back home to live with my mother and father and go to work in Brown's Jewelry Store again.
Where did Uncle Louis go in World War II?
He was in the European Theater of Operations. He started out, the boat took them to Wales and England, and then he started out D-Day +2, and he was in the infantry. No, he was in the big machines that, the guns,
Artillery?
the artillery, he was in the field artillery. And he went right through Europe until they met the Russians in Czechoslovakia. Then he came back home.
Did he ever get wounded?
No, but he got the battle. He got a Bronze Star for bravery.
What did he do?
Well, I don't know. In the book, it says there were a group of young men who did a certain thing, and I don't remember exactly. But his war book has his name mentioned in there, that he had gotten the Bronze Star for bravery.
What was it like getting married and then 5 days later having your husband go off to war?
Terrible, very lonesome and very sad. And that's why I came back to live with my parents, and I went to work. So, at least I went to work and wrote letters and sent him packages of pepperoni and whatever he would ask for in those days. So that was very sad. 29 months he was overseas.
Wow.
When he came back, where'd he go?
When he came back, we went to Willimantic for a while to live with his parents, and then we came back to Springdale and got an apartment, and that's where we stayed. And then we had our first child, Louis, when I was living in an apartment on Soretta Street, Ernie Chalizzo's apartment.
the, gonna wait for the plane to go overhead. Or the truck or whatever it is.
Oh, you must have been well prepared for
This is
this.
why we do it for.
I'm just
Okay, kids.
I'm just ad-libbing.
Kids, sorry. Are we missing it? No.
No,
Are we missing
questions?
anything?
I would like to know, number one, the dates of when Grandpa and Grandma came over, and number two, the scene in the Paradise Grill, what they did and whatnot. Who
Okay.
was there?
I think my mother came with her mother in 1895, and my father came with his brother the year before, maybe 1894.
Huh.
And my father rented a room in my mother's brother's house, is how they met, back in this country again, and then became married. And going back to the Paradise Grill, my father used to take his mandolin out and play the mandolin for all the customers. And then they had a lovely fireplace in the bar room, and my father would cook lamb chops and sausage for anybody who sat around with him. So we had a very nice time there in that Paradise Grill when it was brand new.
And how old were you when the Paradise Grill?
Oh, the day that the diggers came to dig the cellar across the street, which became the Paradise Grill, was when my sister Jenny got married. So that would have been in 1941.
Wow. And do you remember the clam bakes every year? in the
Every
back?
summer, my father would have clam bakes, and all of his customers and friends would come and spend the whole day there, eating and drinking all day long, clams and whatever they would cook over the grill. And of course, there was the music all the time. And my brother Manuel also was there all day long, playing the guitar with my father and his mandolin.
Do you remember the big pitchers of red wine, and they would cut up
The peaches.
fruit, the peaches?
My father had peaches, or he used to call them, let's see, they weren't peaches, they were
Nectarines?
apricots, the big
Ah.
ones, the apricots.
Ah.
And he would cut them up in little slices and put them in the wine. And that was a delicacy.
I'd also like to know. I remember Grandpa going hunting and coming home, and Grandma would cook what he.
Oh, my father loved going hunting. He loved to go hunting, and he would bring home squirrels and rabbit. And my mother would cook the squirrels and skin them and whatever she had to do. And I never ate any of that. I didn't want to eat any of that. But everybody around loved it. Even my sister Jenny's boys up to today, Danny and Bobby, remember eating Grandma's squirrel.
I remember Grandpa holding up
Me too.
a rabbit's leg or something in a stew, and he says, "You want to taste this?"
Oh yes, yeah. One time he had he shot a squirrel and it went back in the hole, and my father went to reach to get the squirrel out, and the squirrel bit him and he fainted. That's a big story.
I never saw a squirrel faint.
My father fainted. My father fainted.
He killed squirrels, but he fainted then.
Who was the best cook in the family?
Oh, my mother.
Right
My
there.
mother was a very good cook, but I became a good cook
Aunt
too.
Yolanda.
Yeah, no question.
Aunt Yolanda.
Yeah, Aunt Yolanda.
We can answer that.
I
That's why
love
everyone went
I
to
love to
Yolanda's
cook.
house.
That's all I do is cook. Even though my husband and I live alone, I still love to cook. I cook a lot.
I love to cook too. I become the mommy here, and I cook a lot. Give me a secret or two for to make me a better cook. Is there something? Anything
Well,
with that?
yes. If you're going to make tomato sauce, you just put a little olive oil in your pan and garlic, but take the garlic out before it gets brown. You just want the flavor of the garlic, and that's the secret of good sauce. And then after you've thrown your tomatoes in, and maybe you could use a can of tomato paste, you put parsley and basil.
Fresh.
Fresh, has to be fresh. And then you put a little salt, and if you have garlic salt, you should use that too. That makes a nice flavor. And that's it.
Okay.
Don't cook it too long, though. Tomato sauce should not be cooked too long.
That's surprising. I thought it was better if you let it simmer a lot.
Years ago, the old fable was to have the sauce on the stove all day long. But now when you see chefs on TV, they throw it in a frying pan and take it out 2 seconds later.
Quick
So,
sauce.
yeah.
What about the soup with the little meatballs? What
Oh,
goes
I
into
love to
that?
make. I love to make fresh chicken soup. I put cold water in a big pan, and I put about 6 chicken breasts with the bone on the bone, and I let that simmer. And after it simmer, I take the chicken out, and I simmer the soup, and I cut the chicken in little pieces, and then I put my carrots, celery, and a little bit of potatoes in there too. And then I have little meatballs that I make, and I put them in the freezer. They're very tiny, and when I'm almost through with my chicken soup, I put the little meatballs in there, so because they don't need very long to cook. I also keep frozen escarole in the freezer, and I cut that up in little pieces, and I put that in my chicken soup.
Those little meatballs, are they seasoned at all? Or
Yes, they're exactly like you would make meatballs for your pasta sauce.
Tell us about your meatball recipe. What goes in it?
Oh, my meatball recipe is breadcrumbs and fresh bread, a little bit of fresh bread, like maybe a slice or 2, and I put a little milk in the fresh bread. And then I put 2 eggs and seasoning in the bread, seasoning in the meat, and a little parsley, whatever, and I mix it all up, and that's exactly the same as I make big meatballs and the little meatballs for the soup.
No raisins like grandma.
Oh, I also put raisins in, and I have them separate in a pan in the freezer, and I have it marked meatballs with raisins. Also, when you make braciole, which is rolled beef, you put salami or prosciutto on that, and the seasoning, and you put raisins on it, and a little bit of breadcrumbs, and roll it up, and you fry it, and you cool it off and put it in your freezer. You got it ready for next time you make sauce. Same thing with,
if you just fried it and put it in the freezer,
yeah.
how long would you put the braciole in the sauce for?
Oh, that would take a good hour because it's been frozen. And the same thing with sausage. Good Italian sausage, you can fry that up fresh in pieces, and you can put that in your freezer to make things easier when you make your sauce, and just take that sausage and put it in your sauce. Otherwise, you could just put it in fresh when you're making your sauce. These are just shortcuts that I use in my freezer.
When you were growing up and learning how to cook, what was the market like? When you went to buy oil and bread and this and that and the other, cheese, this and that and the other thing, did you have good Italian markets around? Or
Oh,
did you
yes,
see
there was
anything?
an Italian market on Pacific Street, which is no longer there now, but there was an Italian market that my mother used to go to, and I went along with her. They used to have the fresh chickens hanging already cut, and whatever they had to do with the chicken, and all the fresh vegetables and meats were around, and we used to get dishes for whatever my mother spent money on. We used to get dishes to bring home each week.
You used to get dishes?
Yeah, plates, dishes.
Huh.
Yeah, the store used to give them for whatever money my mother would spend. We used to get the plate dishes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but he doesn't get the drift of it.
Oh.
Are you off camera now?
No, I remember dishes at movies during the
Yes,
press.
something like
But it was
that.
something like
exactly
that.
exactly like the movies would give you dishes for going there.
So,
Now you buy
this
them
what
sometimes.
kind of-
Yeah, in the grocery
what is
store.
that stuff Nancy collects, and is it the same?
Stuff that
The,
Nancy-
the brightly
Oh,
colored?
yeah, not Fiesta ware, but dishes that had like a pattern on them or something.
It was like an incentive for them to
Right.
buy.
Well, actually, the dishes that my mother used to have, which I did have and I don't have anymore either, were all Oriental designs.
Like
Oriental
Luella?
cups and saucers, Oriental little plates.
Maybe that accounts for my mother's Oriental ones.
Yeah.
I never knew where they came from.
That's where they came from. The stores would give them to you.
So this was not, but it was a popular thing at the time.
Oh yeah, they were Oriental plates made in China.
She
Yeah.
had quite a few.
So.
And I was unaware where they came from. All right.
Did you, in your childhood, did you ever go on family vacations?
No, we never really had vacations, but we were very lucky to live 3 miles away from the Sound. And my father worked near the beach. He would take us in the morning with our pepper and egg sandwiches, and we would go to the beach all day long, and then he would pick us up on his way home, and my mother would have our dinner ready.
Today, we can all split up and go off and watch televisions or cable or all sorts of entertainment. What was family entertainment like, week by week, let's say? Weekday entertainment for the family.
Radio or?
Yeah, we used to play lotto a lot, which is bingo, really. And yeah, then we listened to the radio. That's what we had in those days. But we had a lot of music. We used to go in the living room and play the piano and sing. So we always had music around us every day.
So you provided your own entertainment and everybody was involved?
Yes. Our relatives and the people who lived we had a 3-story house, our floor, and the tenants upstairs on each side, and 2 more on the 3rd floor. So they were sort of family-like. They weren't strangers that lived in my mother's house and father's house. So we all used to get together and have our singing and whatever,
What's that
talking.
woman's name that lived up in the
Tika May,
Tika May.
which means Aunt Carme.
Oh.
She lived on the 3rd floor, and she was a very good cook. But if she made you stuffed clams, the garlic was this big in it. This big.
Oh my God.
Which everybody loved, I guess.
She did?
Yeah, she scared us.
Grandma used to make stuffed clams.
Yes, Grandma made
And she
stuffed
put a little
clams.
bit of hot in it. Sometimes.
Always put
Yeah,
red pepper in it.
yeah, I love those.
Mm.
How did your family compare? You're all in the living room. Everybody's all singing and playing instruments and so on. What did the neighbors think of that?
But the neighbors used to come and join us. We had one neighbor that used to come and sing all the time. That was Mr. Didimo. And he would love to sing Italian songs, and I would play the songs and he would sing. We had a wonderful upbringing, marvelous upbringing. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, but yes, I must say we were poor at one time. During the Depression, my father didn't have any work for years, a year or whatever it was, and my mother went to work sewing blouses in a blouse factory to buy flour to make bread. And that was the only time I remember that we didn't have food that we really wanted to eat.
Did you still keep singing?
Oh yes, we were still happy and singing all the time.
Let's see, you lived before air conditioning in hot summers. And
Yes.
Here we are sitting in a pretty nice summer day, but what was it like? How did you spend your summers? If you weren't going away to the beach, what was it like around the house? And
Well, next to our big house, there was an empty lot that belonged to my father also, which later on he built a house on it. And we used to sit out there. We used to call going outside in the grass. And we used to sit out there and eat fruit and whatever we had and keep cool.
I remember when I was a little boy, we had to worry about polio.
Yes, yeah.
And there's all sorts of diseases that my kids don't even know about. But what was it like growing up? Were you ever worried about losing brothers and sisters or friends to a serious illness?
No, actually not. We never had a thought about that. We just grew up loving each other and being happy.
let's see, school. Oh, church.
Church was around the corner, not too far from our house, and it was St. Cecilia's Church. And that's where my sister Jenny got married. And then downstairs in that church is where she had her dinner. An Italian friend of my father's cooked the dinner for Jenny's wedding. And that's, as I said, that was the day the bulldozer dug the cellar for the Paradise Grill when Jenny got married.
What was, did anybody in the family and really enjoyed going to church so much that they considered being a priest or a nun?
Me, I was the one. I loved going to church, and I wanted to be a sister, a nun. And I sang in the choir at St. Cecilia since I was a little girl until after I had Louis and Roseanne. They were about 7 or 8 at that time, and they were studying their catechism to get their communion. So that's when I stopped singing in the choir so that I could sit with my children in church.
See, we've been, what?
I was going to tell you, I also belong to an organization that's called the Catholic Daughters of America. And we did things for the poor, supplied money to give water to certain areas that needed it. And then came time for the old St. Cecilia's Church was going to be abandoned, and they built a new beautiful big church up on top of Wheat Hill Avenue, and a school in the back where Louis and Roseanne went to school there. But the church, I was honored to be the one to save $1,000 for the year for the Catholic Daughters to give the priest to put a window in. There's 3 windows on one side and 3 on the other. And the first window is the Nativity, and that's my window in that church.
That was all your $1,000?
No, not mine.
But
The Catholic Daughters.
Okay.
Towards the end, we didn't have enough money. We'd have to have a bingo. But we got the $1,000, and I have a picture of me giving the priest a check.
We've been talking about your family and how tight they were, and the
Yeah.
house and the neighborhood and stuff like that. Let's branch out now to friends, and who were your friends, and what other families do you have a connection with in Stamford and so on?
Well, actually, as far as friends go, the family was so close. We were the family, and we were the friends. My father had a lot of friends. They would come over, and they would accompany him with the guitars. But actually, family. We were
Did you have a
family.
best friend in school?
Yes, I had a best friend that went through every grade at Stanford High School with me. Every year I was in the same room with her. And luckily, I became a secretary in the doctor's office, and she was the nurse, the one I went to school with. And up to today, she's still living, but we both left the doctor years back. But that would be the one.
And her name?
Jean Bache. Jean Bache was the nurse.
How do you spell that last name?
B-A-C-H. Her husband was a commercial artist.
Okay. Any other areas? We've got school, church, neighborhood. Are you tired of this?
No,
Why don't
I'm
we
all
eat
right.
and think of other questions.
That's a pretty shade.
Mm.
Yeah, it is.
What did you say and think of other questions?
Why don't we eat, and then if we think of other questions, we can do that.
Oh, Yolanda.